Welcome back to the Dargslan series, part 16, and this time we're teaching Linux to do work for you while you're not even at the keyboard. That's really what Cron is. Backups at 3 a.m., log cleanup on Sundays, a health check every 5 minutes. Anything that needs to happen on a schedule without you typing the command. By the end of this lesson, that little crontab-e on the screen will feel like second nature. Here's the path we'll take. We start with what cron actually is, and just as importantly, what it isn't. Then crack open that famous 5-field syntax that scares people off for no good reason. From there, we'll separate user cron tabs from the system-wide ones, look at system timers as the modern alternative, cover anacron for machines that aren't always on, and finish with the single most common cron complaint. It works in my shell, but not in cron. By the end, none of this will feel like magic. So before any syntax, get this picture in your head. Cron is a stopwatch with a notebook. Every minute it wakes up, reads the cron tabs, checks what matches the current time, and runs whatever's due. That's the whole job. 3 things worth tattooing on your brain right now. Jobs run as you, with your permissions. If the machine was asleep at 3 a.m., Cron just shrugs and skips it, which is why anacron exists, and we'll get to it on slide 11. And if a job prints anything at all, Cron quietly emails it to you, usually landing in var mail. Now the syntax. A crontab line is just 5 time fields followed by a command. Minute, hour, day of month, day of week, then what to run. Read this example left to right. 33**0 run backup.sh. That translates to at 3:30 in the morning, on any day of the month, in any month, but only when it's Sunday. Star simply means any value, and day of week counts from 0, where 0 is Sunday. Honestly, you can get through most of your career with about 8 patterns, and they're all here. 0*** runs every hour on the hour. /15 runs every 15 minutes. 03 runs daily at 3 a.m., and that 1 to 5 in the day of week field means Monday through Friday, weekdays only. And then the shortcuts. @reboot fires once when the machine comes up, and @daily is just a friendlier way to say 00***. Copy these, adapt them, and you'll rarely need to think about the syntax from scratch again. Now, where do those patterns actually live? Every user on the system gets their own personal crontab, and you manage it with just 3 commands. Crontab-e opens it in your editor and reloads cron automatically when you save. No daemon restart needed. -l prints what you've got scheduled, and -r wipes the whole thing with no confirmation, so treat it like rm-rf. And one quick tip. Export editor nano in your shell unless you genuinely want to land in Vim. Now that's per user cron. The system itself has its own setup under /etc, and it's beautifully lazy. There are 4 directories: cron.hourly, daily, weekly, and monthly. And any executable script you drop in runs on that cadence. No syntax, no schedule fields, just a script in the right folder. Then there's /etc/crontab, the master file, which adds a user column so you can say which account runs the job. And cron.d is where packages drop their own crontab snippets. That's why installing something like logrotate just quietly starts working. Now, before we go deeper into cron syntax, it's worth pausing on the elephant in the room. Systemed timers. On modern Linux, you've actually got 2 scheduling tools sitting side by side. Cron is the classic, universal, one-line syntax, unchanged since the 70s, and perfect when you just need something to run every Tuesday. System timers are the modern alternative. They log to journal CTL, so debugging is a joy. They support randomized delays and dependencies. They catch up on missed runs after a reboot, and you manage them exactly like any other service. Different strengths, and honestly, both are still very much alive. And just so you've seen one in the flesh, here's what a system timer actually looks like. It's 2 small files dropped into etc system. The timer file says when. on calendar fash daily, with persistent true, so a missed run gets caught up after a reboot. The service file says what? Run jach usr chakra local bin backup.sh once as user Laszlo. One command to enable both, and you're done. We'll spend the rest of this lesson on cron, but now you know the alternative isn't scary. Just a bit more verbose. And once those two files are in place, the same system tools you already know just work on them. Systemctl list timers shows every active timer with its last and next fire. The dashboard you'll open most often. Systemctl status backup.timer drills into one. And here's the killer feature versus cron. Journalctl ubackup.service gives you real logs from real runs. No more wondering where the output went. Need to test without waiting for the schedule? Systemctl start backup.service kicks off the job by hand. Now, before we leave scheduling behind, there's one more tool worth knowing, especially if you're running Linux on a laptop. Cron has a blind spot. If the machine is asleep or powered off at 3 a.m., that job simply doesn't run. Anacron fixes this with a different philosophy. Instead of chasing exact times, it tracks when each job last ran, and if it's overdue, it runs it shortly after the next boot. Cron is for always-on servers. Anacron is for machines that come and go. Now, sooner or later, you'll hit the most famous cron complaint in existence. It works in my shell, but not in cron. Almost every time, it's one of four things, and it's worth walking them in order. First, path. Cron's is bare, so node or Python won't be found. Use full paths like acha usr bin node. Second, environment variables. Cron doesn't read your .basharc, so set what you need at the top of the cron tab. Third, the working directory is /, not your home, so either cd in or go fully absolute. And fourth, output you can't see. Errors quietly go to local mail, so always redirect to a log file with job.log2 and 1. Check those four in that order, and you'll solve almost every cron mystery you ever meet. While we're on the topic of things that go wrong, let me flag 3 classic mistakes I've seen burn people. First, never edit the spool file under var spool cron directly. You skip validation, and one typo can silently kill every job you have. Always go through crontab, E. Second, if a job might run longer than its interval, wrap it in flock so you don't end up with 3 backups stepping on each other. And third, the silent killer. No logs, no monitoring. Redirect output to a file, tail it occasionally, and even better, alert on log freshness, because cron will happily fail for weeks without saying a word. So before we move on, here's the short list worth keeping in your back pocket. Crontab E to edit safely, crontab L to see what you've got, systemctl list timers when you're on the system side, and journalctle. U to find out what actually happened when a job ran. Lean on the daily and hourly shortcuts when the schedule is simple, they read like English, and reach for flock whenever overlap could hurt you. Memorize these 6, and you can handle 90% of scheduling work without ever opening a manual. And zooming out one more level, here are the 5 things from this whole part that I'd want you to actually remember. 5 fields, then a command. That's the entire syntax. Always edit through crontab E, so the wrapper catches your mistakes. Assume cron knows almost nothing about your environment, so spell out paths. Reach for system timers when you need real logs. And log everything, every job, every time. Because a silent cron job is a broken cron job you haven't noticed yet. And that wraps part 16. Next time, in part 17, we shift gears from scheduling commands to writing them. Shell scripting proper. Variables, conditionals, loops, functions. The building blocks that turn those clever one-liners you've been collecting into real, reusable tools. 16 down, 8 to go. Open up a file called myfirstscript.sh and I'll see you there.